With that, I am delighted to introduce our speaker today, Stacy Eldridge with Silicon Prairie Cyber.
Hi, everybody. Stacy Eldridge here. I'm happy to be your speaker today. And what I'm going to be talking about today is business email compromise. First, I want to give you a little bit about my background. My education, I have a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Science from Bellevue University. And then I have 5 different certifications. 3 of them are in computer forensics, and then the other 2 are in cybersecurity. For my career background, I actually started as a software developer at TD Ameritrade, and then I had an amazing opportunity to join the FBI as a digital investigator. And so I examined laptops, desktops, cell phones, tablets, anything you can plug into a computer or power on, you name it, I examined it. I had the opportunity to work on several large cases. One of them, I got to work on a hacking case in conjunction with the London Metropolitan Police Department. And I also testified as an expert witness in federal court for the first case to get a material support of terrorism conviction. And then from there, I moved on to GE Digital, where I ran the data loss prevention program across the globe for about 90,000 people. And specifically, I was in charge of the investigation and data recovery portion of the program. Most recently in my career world, I moved back to Nebraska and led the cybersecurity program at a public utility where I was responsible for protecting critical infrastructure. And then most recently, I launched my business, Silicon Prairie Cyber Services, where my mission is to help entrepreneurs and small businesses protect their business and customer data. So enough about me. Let's go ahead and jump into business email compromise and what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I'm going to start off with an overview of phishing because that's fundamental to understanding business email compromise. Then I'm going to give you a definition of it. I'll give you the 5 main types of business email compromise. I'll give you some common impersonations that go around. I'll talk about 2 cases of loss, and then some of the trends that are still hot. And then I want to give you some tips of some things you can do to defend against this scam, and then what you can do if you get hit. Basically, my goal by the end of this talk is I want you to know what business email compromise is, how to be on the lookout for it, and then know some things you can do to defend against it. So let's jump into phishing. What is a phish? A phish is an email where you lure unsuspecting users into voluntarily giving over sensitive information. The lure that you get is generally be something enticing. You want it. You can't miss it. It's going to be timely, and there's going to be a sense of urgency. And they also like to impersonate a trusted business or person. They also like to do a scam with winning. I like to note, if you haven't registered to win and then you get this email that you've won, you probably haven't won anything at all. One of the best examples I can think of is we were having, a themed week with lots of activities going on at work. And then we sent out a test phishing email, and we were giving away an Instapot. And we said, you won this Instapot, click here to claim it. And you wouldn't believe how many people desperately wanted that Instapot because so many people clicked on it and they had never even registered to win. And the next thing is, how does the phishing email work? You're going to generally either click on a link, and that's going to direct you to download something bad, or you're going to go to a website where you're going to log in with your username and password. You think it's a legit website because they are doing a good job. They do the graphics, the icons, a lot of the branding to make it look legit. And so you take a quick glance, you log in, now they have your username and password. Or the other thing they'll do is they'll put an attachment in the email, and then when you open the attachment, they're going to do something to your computer, and then they have hold of your computer. Why are they doing it? Quite simply, they want to make money. Or they could want to get on your computer or your network, and depending on your business, they want to steal your data or be malicious. And I should mention, we're going to pause for questions at the end. So if you have a question, keep it in your mind, jot it down, and we'll cover it at the end. So let's get into business email compromise and what it is. It is a more sophisticated phishing scam, and it focuses on businesses that perform regular wire transfers. But really, at the end of the day, their target is any business that deals with payments. So that's pretty much going to be every business. Their goal is to redirect payments or steal data to commit financial fraud later on. They like to impersonate executives, but they're not picky. They'll use any email account associated with a company that has a real person associated with it to try to give it legitimacy. And I want to give you a couple of facts here. Business email compromise has cost businesses over $26 billion, that's billion with a B, and between just July of 2016 and September of 2019. So that's big business. And the other thing, there was a 136% increase reported globally between the end of 2016 and May of 2018. And I also want to compare it to ransomware. Last summer in Nebraska, ransomware was really hot. You maybe heard of the company in Beatrice coming up to Lincoln to use the Bitcoin ATM so they could pay their ransom. The net profit of business email compromise is 100 times greater than ransomware. It's big business. This is why they're doing it. They're making lots of money when they do this. There are 5 main types of business email compromise I want to talk about. There's an oldie but a goodie, the bogus invoice scheme. There's CEO fraud, account compromise, attorney impersonation, and data theft. Let's start off with bogus invoice scheme. This has been around a while. It usually involves a business you have an existing relationship with. The attacker will ask you to wire funds to an alternate fraudulent account. And by that, I mean it's not that business's account, it's the hacker's account. They'll generally make this request via a spoofed email. So what's a spoofed email? There's 2 basic ways you can do it. One, you can switch out some letters and make it look like it's the company. So for Microsoft, they would replace the O's with zeros, and if you take a glance, it looks like Microsoft. Or the other way they can do it is they just type in whatever email address they want as the from. And so if you're looking at it, it might look like it came from somebody else's email address. But at the end of the day, this isn't a sustainable attack plan because you can only hit that business so many times before they're on to you, and they lose so much money. Now, at this point, I want to go ahead and share my screen and show an example of a bogus email scam. So take a peek at this, and I'll talk about it while you're looking at it. You have all the usual stuff from to subject, and the subject is please transfer immediately, and there's an attachment about the wiring instructions. Here you can see Jane is telling John to, do what Jim says in his email below and have a good weekend. And Jim is telling Jane, hey, here's the new wiring instructions. It has got to be done tonight. So if you think about some of the techniques that I talked about, this email is playing on them all. So on this next screen, I've highlighted the tells that this is a phishing email. So let's start at the bottom of the email. The part I have in the red box is not an actual forward. It looks like it, right? Because it says from set to, it has all the things you'd expect. But they actually just typed it in. Because this is a plain text email, it's really easy to type in whatever you want to try to give legitimacy. So they're giving those orders, it's real people. Jim and Jane are talking. So John's like, okay, I looked at the bottom email, seems legit, I'm gonna do it. There's a couple of other tells here too. The emails, so you can see John, he's the person inside the company. His email address is Acme ABC. Now let's take a look at Jane's email address. This is acmeacb.com. So you can see it's just a quick flip of 2 letters, and if you're glancing, it's going to look like it came from Jane internally. And some other things to drive the action, the sent time. Look at this. It's right before the end of the day on Friday. So you just want to go home. You're just going to do it. You know, all the things are there that says do it. So I hope this gives you kind of a good idea of some of the techniques that attackers might use when they're trying to lure you in and compromise you. Let's go ahead and move on to CEO fraud. The CEO fraud is when the attacker pretends to be a high-level executive. They like to do it as CEO, but they can do any high-level executive, vice president, somebody in that position of authority. Why do they do it? Again, it's that position of authority. From a young age, we're trained to respect authority and do what they say. And then when you're in a business environment, you know, you want to please your boss, please the chain of command, you want to keep your job. And so those are all great things for the attacker to use to socially engineer you to get you to do what they want. A lot of the times they're going to have a time sensitive or confidential matter that they're going to talk to you about in the email. And they're going to convey a sense of urgency. They're going to say something like, I'm in an important meeting. I need it now. I need it ASAP. And by the way, I can't answer my phone in this super important meeting. So if you would go ahead and buy those Apple iTunes gift cards and scratch off the codes and email me those pictures right away, that would really help me out. You know, that's one of the scams, but it's also in there with, you know, wiring money, change this, do this, you know, all this stuff with money. And again, it's the CEO or some high-level executive. So people tend to do it and they don't ask questions. And again, they like to send these towards the end of the day, so you're in a hurry and you're not questioning what's going on. The next one is account compromise. This one's a little more sophisticated. And this one, the email account is hacked. The hacker reads your email. He's sitting in there watching and learning and seeing how you conduct business and who you conduct business. And he does all of this before he takes any action. He uses your hacked email account to make requests for invoice payments for the people you're doing business with. He will send emails to multiple vendors on your contact list. You might be wondering, well, if he's using my email, how come I'm not seeing it? Because surely they're replying and it will come in my inbox and I'll notice. In the background, the attacker has taken the time to set up some rules on your mailbox to clean everything up. So he's got rules to delete the sent items. He's got rules to forward those incoming emails automatically and then clean up the forwards and empty the trash. So you're not going to see any trace of this in your email. And normally you don't catch on until the customers follow up with you on the status of an invoice. They could be following up because, well, maybe the email seemed fishy to them, or maybe they sent payment, but you legitimately are saying we still haven't got payment. And so it can take a while before you realize that you're hacked. And again, they're sending emails out to a whole bunch of people at the same time. So again, it's going to flood, and your company could lose lots of money. Your customers could lose lots of money because it's hard to pick up on until somebody says something. The next one is attorney impersonation. Here, the attacker will contact the employee or an executive at the company and identifies themselves as a lawyer. They're going to say something about handling a time-sensitive matter. It's going to be super confidential, and again, to not talk to anybody about it. And they're going to pressure you, the employee, to hurry up and quickly and secretly transfer those funds. So they might say it's in, you know, some case they're trying to keep out of court or a settlement and nobody's supposed to know. So again, that's how they're driving you to try to take action without telling anybody else what's going on. And again, they're going to hit you up at the end of the day to do this. The next one is data theft. This is where the attacker compromises the email account again, but they're targeting specific roles. So they might target HR and payroll specifically. They will again use that compromised email to send email requests out to whoever they want to get information from. So think about HR, they're going to be requesting PII, which is personally identifiable information from other employees. And then once they get that information back, they're going to do whatever they want. And they think this is going to work because they're using all of the social engineering tactics, you know, that is common: urgency, position of authority, and that's how they're going to collect that information and use it later to commit other financial fraud. This is going to be low volume, and it's not going to be flagged as spam because it's generally a person going low and slow, and they're replying back and forth to the emails as you go forward. Now, there are some common impersonations you should be aware of. One, if you're a financial institution, they will impersonate your customer, one or more of them. They also like to pose as an executive, as we discussed. They like to pretend to be a legitimate employee in payroll. Again, payroll is a great one because if you're contacting employees saying, oh, verify all your banking information or where your payroll's going or whatever, because people are concerned about their paychecks. They want their paychecks. They want their money. So again, it's easily to social engineer them into giving over important information. They like to impersonate suppliers, and that's a great one because there's generally a lot of big money being exchanged for suppliers and their customers. And they also like to target real estate services because, again, big money transactions, and people are, you know, super concerned about the closing of their house. They want to get their house. They want to do it on time. And if somebody says, hey, we're missing XYZ, hurry up and send it on, or you don't get it closed tomorrow, they're going to hurry up and do it because like they need to close tomorrow for whatever reasons. Now I'd like to talk about a couple of business email compromise loss examples. These two cases that I'm going to talk about together total a loss of $40 million. So keep it in mind, two cases, two businesses, $40 million loss. In the first one, this was an email account compromise situation. The CFO of the company clicked on a link in an email to what looked like an internal system, but it wasn't. And then so once he clicked on the link, the attackers took over his email, and then they used his email to send another email to one of their subsidiaries in another country and request payment. The subsidiary paid, and then the holding company and the subsidiary both lost money. The next case was a fake CFO scam. So on this one, the CEO of a subsidiary was actually socially engineered over a long period of time over the telephone, believe it or not. The CEO thought he was corresponding back and forth with the holding corporation, and then as they gained trust over a period of several months, the CEO believed he was actually handing money over to the holding company. So how did he do this? You know, this is really a business for the hackers, the attackers that are doing this. So they've got some sophisticated stuff on their end because, you know, $40 million from two companies, and they've got answering service. So you call the phone numbers listed in their emails, somebody's going to answer, and they're going to answer with, you know, XYZ company that you think you're corresponding with. And so it gives that legitimacy. And we'll talk about what to do about phone numbers in the part about what to do to defend. So again, two cases, $40 million quickly lost. There's several different trends that continue to be hot. They say stuff like, click on this secure link, click on OneDrive, Dropbox, DocuSign, Google Drive, all sorts of imposter sites. And the sites, you know, look good. They're using all of the graphics. They are trying to steal personal information and stealing tax information. Normally you'd see the stuff about the tax fraud ramping up in February and March, and even a little bit into April, because they're trying to get your tax refund before you file it for it. But this year, since taxes have been delayed, we expect to see this start wrapping up really towards the end of this month and then into June and July. So keep an eye out for that. And they can even use techniques like the IRS has rejected your tax claim, or you need to call it to IRS about your taxes, there's a problem. And a lot of people don't stop and think, well, you know, I filed with TurboTax, but I use my home email address. Why are they emailing me at work? You know, again, people are concerned about the refund, their taxes, the IRS, they don't want to get in trouble. So it makes an easy segue for the hackers to socially engineer you. And then with HR, they like to target them for sensitive information. I have one example case where somebody was impersonating an executive. They emailed somebody in HR and said, hey, I need to change where my paycheck goes, hurry up and do this for me right away. And the HR person actually was emailing back and forth with this hacker over the course of several emails. And then at the end, they said, well, you know, I actually can't do it for you. I'm in HR, talk to this person in payroll. And then the hacker contacted the person in payroll. They forwarded that email on to that person, and they kept going back and forth. And luckily, I think within the first email, the payroll person took a look at it and realized that it was a scam because it wasn't coming from an internal email. And so, the moral of the story is they really are going to cast a wide net. They're not going to just do executives. They're going to target you any way that they can think of, any way they can engineer you to get you to take action that you normally wouldn't do. Now, in the emails coming through, there are some common subjects you want to be aware of. The subjects are going to include words like request for, month, day, year. It'll have transfer, just request. It'll talk about urgent, and it might even say transfer request in the subject line. Now, in the body of the email, there's also going to be some common business email compromise phrases that they're going to use. Again, you'll see request. They'll say follow-up, urgent, important, and they'll ask if you're available and are you at your desk, because again, they're trying to build that trust to make it seem like they know who you are, they've worked with you. Now here we get to the part where you can take some actions to help you defend against the scam. One of the first things you can do, regardless of your business size, is to have a security awareness training program. Through the training program, you can engage your employees regularly. So this can be, just articles to read, videos to watch, and you can even do test phishing emails. Just something to engage them and keep it top of mind so they can be aware. The other thing you want to do, especially if you deal with a lot of money transactions with your different customers, is you want to have some sort of procedure in place to verify vendor payment changes, and you want to have a second sign-off method in that. So this means you need to have a written standard operating procedure and write all the details down. And this is where you want to include the point of contacts. Who's the person you're dealing with at the company? How do you get a hold of them? So what email, what phone number do you use to get a hold of them when this is happening? And then, who are the different people involved? So there's probably at least 2 people at your company that can handle this and 2 people at their company. And you should never deviate from this procedure, even when somebody says it's urgent. Because really, at the end of the day, this procedure will protect you as an employee, protect the company, and protect those you do business with. And when you are doing transfer requests, make sure you to confirm them via email. Don't reply to the email, and don't use the telephone number listed in the email. Again, go back to your standard operating procedure and look people up and see what you're supposed to do there and who you're supposed to contact. And the other thing, you want to stay up to date on the habits of your customers and scrutinize the transactions that are going on. If it doesn't seem right, go ahead and pick up the phone and give a quick phone call to see if it's legitimate and what's going on. If you have some sort of service helping you with your email, there are some additional steps you might be able to do, such as including an external tag somewhere in the subject line or the body of the email. You might notice these. You've sent an email to somebody at a company, they reply back to you, and then you see those things embedded in the reply. Some companies remove them, some companies don't. So that's something to be aware of, to kind of have your employees have eyeballs on something that says, hey, this isn't from an internal person. And that works because if they're impersonating your CEO and you get an email that says it's from the CEO, but it's got that external tag in it, then that means it didn't come from your business email system. Now, as a regular user without a whole bunch of protections, there's still some actions you can take when you get these emails. You can think to yourself, was I expecting this email? And you can scrutinize the sender's email address. So like in that example earlier, instead of Acme ABC, it was Acme ACB. So take the time and scrutinize those emails before you start taking action. You should also scrutinize the links and the attachments in the emails. So for the links, take a look again. Is it spoofed? Are they flipping letters? Is it numbers instead of letters? Where is it taking you? It might say it's taking you to one thing and then take you somewhere else, and if you look in the address line of your browser. And then when it comes to attachments, were you expecting the attachment? Do you handle these attachments? Should you have even received it in the first place? I can think of another phishing test that we did where we sent invoices out to the entire company and said, this is overdue, you need to hurry up and pay it. And I can't tell you the number of people that clicked on it. And these people weren't even in invoicing. So why are you opening it? Why are you looking at it? Well, it's a case of curiosity killed the cat. So be careful as you're opening those attachments. And you should follow the procedure even when it's urgent. I know it's tempting to just fly by, fear of authority, displeasing people, but at the end of the day, it's a big win for the company and your customers when you follow procedure. And I have this other crazy idea I want to toss out there. I think you should call and ask the sender about their email and what's going on. Again, don't use the phone number in their email address. Look them up in your contact system and give them a call and say what's going on. And then at the end, I have a recommendation for two things that are a little more technical. You can do something called digital signatures, and that just says that there's not been any interruption in the transmission and the email is the same as when it was sent. And then the last thing you can do is something called demarc and decom. This is for your email system publicly, and basically what it does at a super high level is it says, this is where my emails can come from, and if they're not coming from there, reject them. And you can do the same thing for email that's coming in. So if the email isn't coming from the right spot, you can reject it, and then the recipient won't even see that email. So again, it helps, stop the emails from coming and going. So finally, at the end, I want to give you some tips about what to do if you're a victim. First off, immediately contact your bank and your insurance provider. If you contact the bank soon enough, there's a small chance they might be able to stop and reverse the wire fraud, so you don't insure that loss. And then of course, insurance wants to know sooner rather than later. And you'll want to contact local authorities. So you can probably start at your local police department, and then it might get escalated from there depending on the amount of the loss. The FBI has certain thresholds of loss before they get involved in a case. But if there's a large ring going around, for example, if they're targeting a whole bunch of businesses in Lincoln, then they might get involved even though your individual loss was below their threshold. And if it's really bad, your whole environment might be compromised, and so you'll need to bring in some incident response specialists. And the last thing you can do is file a complaint with the Internet Crime Center at ic3.gov, because they like to track all this information. They'll help direct you to authorities to help with investigation, and they track trends and dollar loss and that sort of stuff over time. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I know I talked really fast. I get excited. I have a lot of stuff to say. So I want to open it up for any questions that I can answer for you guys.
Okay, everybody's unmuted now, so if you have any questions, please shout them out.
I would ask that primarily what you spoke to was corporate scenarios. This group contains an awful lot of small startup businesses. What advice, I know a lot of the advice is the same, but what advice would you be giving this group in terms of like 1 or 2 employees or sole providers? How can they avoid some of these? I know a lot of the principles are the same, but have you had any experiences where just some small startups get hacked?
Yeah, a lot of the times the small startups will get hacked through, they've clicked on that link in their email and then they've downloaded something malicious so they can take over the computer and see what's going on. They can take over their email account. And so I think the best defense against that is security education. And I know sometimes people think, well, it's going to cost a lot of money to do security education, but there's lots of different ways you can educate your employees. One of the things is talking about the spoofing, and there's lots of great resources. SANS has opened up a lot of free resources to identify spoofed emails. I offer some services, but it doesn't have to be, I think if we previously worked in big corporate environments, we're used to like that computer-based training where you get in, you take this module and you're just like next. That's not really beneficial. So I think it's just finding a few great pieces and really honing in on what they can look at and how to scrutinize the email, and stress the importance of taking the time to look and scrutinize. And if there's questions, follow your procedure and pick up the phone. And even if you're a small business and there's maybe just you or another person, I think it's still important to write down your procedures for dealing with transferring funds. And so you know who you're dealing with, where it's going, and then you can stop and say, this doesn't match what I have on record when you said to change it. And then you know who to call and make sure you don't accidentally wire money out that you shouldn't be.
I don't have a question, but our owners had a e-commerce import business that they recently sold. And so a lot of wire transfers were taking place. We were buying the products by the container load being shipped from another country. And our owners actually got the email transfer process was hacked. And we were, by the time the bank that we used at that time got into action or whatever, we lost $90,000.
Yeah,
To your point, and to John's point, as a small startup.
Yeah, it's big business, and it really hurts small businesses.
Stacy, will you be providing any notes for what you've given us today? In particular, I'm interested in things like the 5 types of email fraud that you discussed in the beginning, and some bullet points on ways to identify when an email is fraud. You showed some good straightforward examples, like a trivial misspelling of the from address, and places where it looks like a forwarded email, but somebody has just typed in the information because it's not HTML. But if you could provide us with some notes like that, it would be very valuable.
I don't have any notes prepared, like in a one-page takeaway or anything like that. I could come up with something to, especially like Chris, to your point, to get like the screenshots of that email, and then how to scrutinize and how to defend. Steve, if I give you like a link, I don't know if you can put that somewhere once I get it posted so people could grab it if they're interested, or maybe we just mention it next week.
We could put a link. This will be out on this video will be out on YouTube later today, and in the comments section on the YouTube video, we can include a link.
Okay, we'll do that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
If there's a question in chat about money mules and work from home fraud, I'm not sure what a money mule is. I don't know if you can address that or not.
Sure. So a money mule is, they can do it a couple of different ways. They might wire you some money, or they might give you a cashier's check or a money order or something, and they'll say, oops, I gave you too much money. So if you could just keep, whatever your cut is, and then wire the rest on to somebody else. Or they're say, for ease of transactions, I need somebody in the US to collect the money first and then transfer it on to the country somewhere else. And so basically it's all fraudulent money, and they're using you, the unsuspecting person, as a middleman to get the big chunk of the money, and you like to do it because it's kind of money for nothing, really.
The other thing we see in the newspaper all the time, and there was somebody in Lincoln that just fell for this fraud. Most legitimate businesses never ask for payment with gift cards, and some poor guy in Lincoln fell victim to that scam just recently. It was in the newspaper. So
yeah, you'll see a lot of times it comes and goes with the local power utility companies. There'll be scammers going around, and they'll call random phone numbers, and they're going to say, hey, we're going to shut your power off, we're going to shut your water off, you need to hurry up and pay me over the phone right now with a Green Dot card, so that Green Dot credit card. And again, utilities, they don't call you and demand payment, and 2, they don't want payment over Green Dot. So that's just something else to be aware of. And again, I think it's, if you get something fishy, whether it's an email or a phone call, hang up, look up the business, look up the phone number, and then call them back. Because again, they're giving like the fake phone numbers that'll go into their call center, and they'll answer, because they want your money. They're happy to provide that answering service for you.
There's also private scams with that, where they'll call, a young person will call and say, hi, Grandma, I'm in jail, please. And there was one here in Lincoln where they used gift cards for that too. But that's going around. In fact, my sister got one of those. She's smart enough to know better.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's lots of scams going around. So I think it's important to always take a moment and pause and think through the situation. Who is it coming from? What are they saying? What are they demanding? Is it the end of the day and they're like, I need this money ASAP right now? Again, that sense of urgency.
Any other questions for Stacy?
I have a question. When an individual may have become involved and and they realize it's too late because they are just at the beginnings, how long does it take for these individuals or to stop these individuals from contacting you? Or, contacted by phone, contact by messenger? What can a person do? Because they keep coming back.
Yeah, that's a tough one because a lot of times they're easily able to rotate through different phone numbers and they're picking up a different scam. The best thing you can do is when you're hit is report it to local authorities, report it to the Internet Crime Center so then they know what's going on and they can start collecting information about the case. And as they put all the pieces together, they can start to go off of after these scammers. I mean, there's a lot of scammers, but they're probably in rings. And if they're targeting an area, it's probably one group. So if they can get the one group to stop, that's going to be a win for everybody.
Have they been successful in doing that and stopping these individuals?
There's some, but I mean, it's kind of like, there's so many more hackers than that are targeting us because it's really easy for them. Like it's their full-time job to hack versus we're trying to do our full-time job, serve our customers and also defend. And there's only so many resources, but they are trying to do more and more. Law enforcement is, tech companies that provide defenses, they're getting better and better all the time. I would say, email protection services, even if you use like Gmail, they've got a lot of built-in defenses that weren't available just a few years ago. But the stuff over the phone, that's hard. And that's why I think, if you get that phone call, hang up and then look up the company and call them back.
Thank you.
Okay, we are running out of time. So before we end the call, we would like to select a mug winner for the week. And Stacy, if you could be so kind as to judge the winner for us. Everybody hoist your mug up there and Stacy's going to pick out the mug that she likes the best, plain and simple. So Stacy, can you pick out a winner for us?
Oh, let's see. I think I'm going to do Tracy. Hers says seize the day.
Okay. Excellent. I will make note of that. Thank you very much.
I already have a mug, Steve, so we could do a second one.
Okay. Stacy, can you pick another one? Hoist those mugs up there again.
Hoist them back up. Let's see. We'll do Chris Peterson. She has a lovely summery lighthouse.
Very good. Chris Peterson is the winner. All right. Thank you very much, Stacy. That was an excellent presentation. A lot of great information in there. So thank you so much for your time today. We very much appreciate it. Next week's speaker will be Ingrid Kirst with Ingrid Kirst Consulting. On June 4th, we have Joe Sweeney, and you may have remembered from Joe's introduction, he's got a great radio voice, and I think I would listen to Joe read the back of a cereal box. And then on June 11th, we have Gitsi Loader and Pia Ivano with Inspired Results Consulting. So still looking for speakers for June 18 and June 25. So let us know if you're interested. With that, we are adjourned for the day. Thank you so much for joining us. And please remember that we are open and available. So if you have need any assistance with your small business, please reach out to us. Thank you, and we'll see you all next week.